This is Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, presented by Bearded Iris, here to talk about the third weekend of conference play in Southeastern Conference baseball. We got a lot to talk about. We had a big series in Baton Rouge between Tennessee and LSU. We got teams separating at the top. We got three teams mired at 1-8 in the bottom with issues. We got stuff in between. Lots to talk about. But let's start in Baton Rouge, where Tennessee and LSU was the series that I think everybody circled before the season as the one that we wanted to watch the most. And it lost a little bit of luster because Tennessee had that 0-3 start to conference play where it lost to Missouri, but the Vols rebounded last weekend, sweeping A&M, and went into LSU on Thursday night with the chance to really right the ship. And I think Tennessee coming out of that, winning one of three. I'm not going to call it a victory, but it could have been a lot worse, especially after losing the first two. But the difference in that series, look, this was a theme this weekend. I didn't think you've had very good pitching, and some of that may be bats and balls or whatever. But for whatever reason, offense is ruling the day. But when offense doesn't rule the day is when Paul Skenes pitches. And my goodness, that guy coming from Air Force was a first-round prospect, but he may be the number one guy in the draft right now. It's either he or Dylan Cruz, I think. Pick your LSU guy because both of them are having historic seasons. Skenes, though, my goodness, if you watched that game Friday night and said, I've got to make a pick as a GM right now at one, he might be the guy you take because the fastball is now bumping 102. The slider is nasty. He was working, I think, a curveball and a changeup in there too. And my goodness, it's got to help you when you're facing Paul Skenes, and he's got all that working. He was really the difference in that series because you take Skenes out, and Tennessee scored, 19 runs in 14 innings against other LSU pitchers not named Paul Skenes. Thatcher Hurd was not very good for LSU, did not get an out in his start. And in between, Ty Floyd was just okay, gives up 4 runs in 5 innings. I think LSU would have wanted better. But the Tigers won that game because Chase Burns wasn't very good. He did strike out a bunch of guys. But LSU had something like 7 extra base hits off Chase Burns. And in between for Tennessee, Chase Dollander was very hittable in that Thursday night game. And the Vols, frankly, tried to not help Drew Beam out a lot, too. He gives up, 6 runs in 4 innings, but only one of those was earned. That's the game Tennessee won. If you're both teams, you come out of this weekend, I think feeling okay about things. Again, for LSU, you win 2 out of 3. You feel good about that. For Tennessee, it could have been a sweep, especially after losing the first 2. I think if you're Tennessee, you got Zane Denton going. That was a good thing. Their third baseman had a 2-home-run game this weekend. He was a kid that didn't hit much at Alabama a year ago. It hit better 2 seasons ago. He started to put it together. If you're LSU, my goodness, Dylan Cruz, I don't know what you say at this point. The kid is hitting, I think, along the lines of 540. That's incredible. He is threatening to break Dave Magadan's single-season record. Don't know if he can do that. But look, hitting over 400 at this point in the season is special. He's hitting over 500. He's got an on-base over 600. These are almost, minus the batting average, which is even better. Barry Bonds, vintage Barry Bonds numbers. It's crazy what he's doing. But anyway, LSU leaves the weekend tied at first place in the West at 6-3, tied with Arkansas, which we'll get to in a minute. But the team at the top of the standings, and again, some of what you're seeing at the top of the standings is based on schedule because the teams that are 9-0 and 8-1 have played the easier teams so far. But let's face it, nothing is easy in the SEC. Vanderbilt is alone at the top of the SEC standings after this weekend. The Commodores have faced Ole Miss, Georgia, Mississippi State, the first 2 at home. And again, schedule has played a part, but Vandy's got a plus 82 run differential through 9 league games. That's incredible, and that's without Vanderbilt batting in the bottom half of several innings and having a run rule game in there. The Commodores have yet to commit an error in league play. The defense is locking it down. The pitching staff in SEC games has walked fewer guys than anybody in the league, and the offense, which I don't think any of us thought much of coming into SEC play. Vanderbilt had just not been hitting the ball for about 2 or 3 weekends on end. Vanderbilt now leads the league in batting average in conference games, 371. It leads in on-base percentage, 471, same in slugging, 647. And I think the Commodores have hit 23 home runs, which is either first or second in the league. I think it is leading it. But anyway, Vandy takes a series at home from Georgia. Devin Futrell was really good in that Sunday game. He throws 8 shutout innings. Nick Maldonado comes and finishes it. And Vandy sits at the top of the league, just ahead of Kentucky and South Carolina. Kentucky swept Missouri this weekend at home. Kentucky's pitching. Kentucky's got the lowest ERA in the league in SEC play. The Cats are getting it done with the starting rotation. Darren Williams was really good again. Tyler Bosma, I think, threw 6 shutout innings. I'll have to look that up. If it wasn't, it was close. He was very good. And then on the Sunday game, boy, Missouri just played with base runners, it seemed like, all day. I watched a good bit of that game, but just could not get guys home. Kentucky ends up sweeping the series. Bet you didn't know Kentucky was the number 1 RPI team in the country. Not only the Cats number 1, but that strength of schedule is number 2. Now, Kentucky has not played the toughest part of its SEC schedule. And I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But right now, Nick Mingione has just been so good. In fact, if you took Coach of the Year votes right now, he might get more than anybody. I think his entire lineup is composed of transfers. He might have one returnee in there. The pitching staff, again, he has kind of rebuilt. Austin Strickland's been good for them on the back end. Zach Lee gave them enough on Sunday. And again, Bosma throws 6 shutout innings. Darren Williams, who is kind of a utility guy for them, gives up 2 runs in 5 innings. Missouri is just continuing to get hurt by injuries, particularly on the pitching side. The Tigers have now lost 6 in a row, leaving the weekend. South Carolina, meanwhile, tied at 8-1 with Kentucky, a game behind Vandy. And Carolina finally lost as Mississippi State run-ruled South Carolina. I believe that was the Saturday game, but Carolina wins the bookend games. And frankly, the starting pitching not as good as it had been. Noah Hall finally got hit, which hadn't happened a lot. Eli Jones was pretty good for them, gave them a 4-inning start, which they kind of needed. And Jack Mahoney, who's been really good, was good again. The bullpen, James Hicks, I think threw a couple times. Yeah, he did. Picked up 2 wins this weekend. And look, Carolina just continues to hit the ball. I don't think anybody had South Carolina on the radar as maybe the best home run hitting team in the league at any point in the season. But that's where the Gamecocks are. Gavin Costas, I think, is hit 13. Ethan Petrie, the freshman, has been tremendous so far. It just seems like Carolina is hitting up and down the lineup. We're going to talk about pitching depth a lot. And I think that the 2 or 3 teams that have got about as much as anybody right now, well, I'd throw Tennessee in there too, even though the starting has been a little bit wonky. I still trust the talent there. But you look at Vandy, you look at South Carolina, you look at Kentucky. Those 3 teams right now are hitting it, and they're really pitching it very well. And again, schedule's got a lot to do with it, but no coincidence at the same time that those 3 teams are at the top of the league. And I'll get to Mississippi State in just a minute. Again, starting pitching this weekend, just not very good. And one place where it wasn't very good, where you thought it would be better, was Florida. Brandon Sproat pitches an inning in the 3rd, gives up 8 runs, all earned. I think that was the game that the Gators lost. Jack Caglione gives up, 4 runs in 3 2/3. He failed to get through 4 full innings for the 2nd straight week. Hurston Waldrop was fine, gives up 3 runs in 6 innings, but he walked 6. Florida's starting pitching has just really struggled the last 2 weekends. That is a very talented rotation, probably one of the most talented in the country, but the Gators just are not getting it done on the front end right now. But again, join the club. That's happening with a lot of teams right now. But where Florida has been really good was the bullpen. It was terrific again this weekend. Bailed Florida out. The Gators end up winning 2 of those 3 games. Caglione, again, hitting the ball pretty well. The Gators also getting a little bit healthier, getting some of the middle of the order guys back. You're seeing Josh Rivera hit the ball really well for the Gators. He's always been a decent hitter, but he's having kind of a breakout year at the plate. And of course, Wyatt Langford, who's been hurt, is back and had some nice games this weekend too. So Florida sitting at what is it at this point? Gators are 7-2 in the league in an Eastern division that is just jam-packed at the top. Okay, Arkansas in the West has kept pace with LSU. Arkansas loses a game to Alabama, but takes 2 of 3 in Fayetteville. Kind of like Florida. Starting pitching, not very good, but the bullpen was just lights out. Arkansas this weekend throws 15 innings from its bullpen. It allows 4 earned runs. Cody Adcock, Dylan Carter both pitched twice. Those two combined for 9 2/3 innings and gave up 2 runs in those wins. Kendall Diggs and the rest of that Razorback lineup has really been hitting really well. But Dave Van Horn has just been dodging pitching injuries and moving guys around. Hagen Smith has kind of been there. Landon Sims, for lack of a better way to put it, the way that Mississippi State used him a couple years ago in high leverage spots. He's continuing to do that, pitched in relief this weekend. But Arkansas has had some big pitching injuries this year, but Dave Van Horn just continuing to move the parts around and get it done. So Arkansas ends the weekend tied with LSU at the top, the West at 6-3. Couple more storylines. The bottom of the league. We've talked a little bit about the top of the league. You've got Georgia, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss all at 1-8. And I'm looking around at those teams and going, who's got hope? Ole Miss, I think, has got the most hope. I think it's the most talented team of the three. Of course, the Rebels remember what it's like to be almost dead and buried at this point of the season. Although 7-14 looks pretty good from 1-8. That's where Ole Miss was a year ago before Ole Miss got hot, just hot enough to get an NCAA bid. And, of course, you know what happened from there. Ole Miss wins the NCAA tournament. But the pitching just not the same without Hunter Elliott. I looked for updates on Sunday night. Did not see anything on Hunter Elliott, so I don't know if or when he's going to be back. If he's back, that's a game changer for Ole Miss. Again, not a lot of Friday night aces that are just getting it done week in and week out, but he's been a guy, of course, he carried Ole Miss to end the season, can do it again. The schedule eases up. Of those three teams, Ole Miss, I think, has got the easiest road from here on out. As for State, Chris Lemonis, the fans there have been calling for his head. I just don't think State's pitching, starting pitching, bullpen, whatever. The lineup is really good, but the bullpen and the rotation have been awful. The veterans that they've had around for a couple years aren't getting it done. Some of those guys aren't healthy. I don't know that he'll survive the season, and I'm starting to wonder about Scott Strickland at Kentucky too. He is in, I think, his 10th year in Athens now, and they've not been to even the Super Regional, much less Omaha. Now, they've been to regionals 3 of the last 4 years, but Georgia is a state with a lot of baseball talent, and I don't know. I don't think that not getting to a Super or to Omaha is a place where Georgia wants to be as a baseball program. So I'm wondering, could you see a change there at both those schools at the end of the year? I think both of them have got a lot of work to do between now and then the season. And again, a lot stacked against both. Neither have got a lot of pitching depth. And that's just a killer in this league right now with the way teams are hitting. Okay, let's go to the top end. And right now, I think you've got anywhere from maybe 7 to 10 or 11 regional teams potentially in this league right now. The middle is kind of hard to decipher. We've talked about the bottom. Let's look at the top. I bet you didn't know Kentucky is the number 1 RPI team in the country as of Monday morning. The Cats also the number 2 strength of schedule. No, Kentucky's schedule is going to get tougher. So the Cats are going to have to stay above 500 in the league. You really want to get to 16, 17, probably 18 wins if you want to feel great about hosting. So Kentucky has got its work cut out. But look, the Cats right now 25-3, 8-1 in the league. They've got a very nice head start. I don't know that the RPI wins are going to hold up quite to the level that they are right now. Mississippi State is technically a top 50 RPI team. Don't think State will necessarily end the season there. Indiana State, another team where Kentucky got, I think, 3 wins. Not sure that one's going to hold up. But regardless, the RPI between what Kentucky has banked and what it will play, I think Kentucky, if it can just get above 500 in the SEC or 14 wins, I would think would have an excellent chance at postseason play. And right now, frankly, I think if you pick the field, stop the season today, there's no way Kentucky is not hosting. I think you've got several other teams that would be hosting if you stop the season right now. Vanderbilt would certainly be one of them. South Carolina, Florida, LSU, Arkansas. All those teams, I think right now the SEC would get 6 host teams. I think Tennessee would be a shoe-in as an at-large. I don't know that the Vols would host. Tennessee's got to start racking up more quality wins than it has, but the RPI is good. And frankly, I just think Tennessee is an NCAA regional caliber team, and the Vols can still host. Now, the schedule is going to be brutal, but it's going to get easier on season end. So Tennessee might be a team. If Tennessee can just get to 16-14 league, and it's only one game under right now, the Vols would have a good shot to host too. Now, the other teams, Missouri, Alabama, Auburn, A&M, all sitting there at 3-6. Missouri, with the injuries, I don't know if the Tigers can make it at this point. I mean, they certainly can, but they've got a red-hot Vandy team coming to Columbia for a Thursday through Saturday series. That's one to watch. Missouri really needs to get a win there. You've got Alabama and Auburn at 3-6. Auburn, I'm not sure about the pitching depth for the Tigers. They got battered around pretty good against Florida and Gainesville. Auburn blew an 8-2 lead in the middle innings and ended up giving, I think, 18 in that Sunday game. So with Joseph Gonzalez still not throwing, I think that's a question for Auburn. I don't know if he comes back. Auburn's got to get him back, I think, if it's going to get to a regional. So that's one to watch. Alabama, I think, has got enough pitching and a veteran lineup, enough, I think, to make a regional, but got to pick it up from 3-6. And A&M, man, I just don't know. A&M can still really hit. It's got all those guys back from last year. Boast, Moss, all those kids. Targach, who hit the walk-off or the game winner in Game 3 against Ole Miss in College Station this weekend. Got all the pieces there. That the pitching just hasn't been great. Nathan Detmer has had 2 bad weekends in a row. He's a talented kid. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it just not enough pitching depth for A&M right now. But at 3-6, and Jim Schlossnagle, certainly between what he's done in College Station at TCU, knows a thing or two about getting teams peaking at the right time. Certainly the Aggies kind of limped into conference play a year ago and then really, I think, got a series win, I believe, at LSU. And that was kind of the story for the rest of the year. That's what A&M was. It just kept winning and winning and winning and didn't stop doing that until it had won a couple in Omaha. The pitching, though, just has not come along for A&M, and the lineup has not quite hit at the level of dominance it did a year ago. So really those are the teams: Missouri, Alabama, Auburn, A&M. I like Alabama out of those 4. I like their chances better than anybody else's. A&M certainly has got the talent to do it. I don't know what the injury situation, if Missouri's going to be able to make it. And Auburn, man, you never get bet against Butch Thompson. But losing Joseph Gonzalez, that's certainly a team that's had some struggles pitching too. And if and when he gets back, that's going to help a lot. If he pitches at the level he has before, that's something to watch. Auburn could get it right. They've had some late season spurts and gotten hot just at the right time before. But Auburn, a little bit behind the 8 ball at 3-6. Okay, next weekend, we will preview the series, but the one that I'm watching off the bat, I'm really curious to see how LSU does going to Carolina. Really not as curious about LSU as much as I am about the Gamecocks. South Carolina is off to a phenomenal start, but again, its schedule has been a little bit lacking at times. I think Carolina got a weekend series win over Clemson. Again, like Vandy and like Kentucky, it has played probably the lower third of the league so far. Not to say that Carolina can't beat good teams, because it certainly can. Again, I think the pitching staff, one of the 3 best in the league, but I'm really curious to see how Carolina is going to pitch against that incredible LSU lineup. The ball seems to be getting out of Founders Park a good bit this year. So if you're looking for an early preview of a series to watch next weekend, I would say LSU and South Carolina. If you could just watch one, that's the one that I'd keep an eye on. Okay, we've got power rankings coming up on Tuesday. We'll do some previews of some SEC series coming up. I will probably try to have a guest or two on if I can get someone on, maybe some beat writers for some SEC schools to offer more insight. Again, Power Rankings coming Tuesday. We thank Bearded Iris, which sponsors our channel. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. If you like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our content. We cover football, basketball, and baseball, and we're going to be coming to you with more baseball. We've just been really busy here. I'll probably start doing a lot of things solo just so we can get up more content. But anyway, best way to catch our baseball content is to hit that subscribe button. Again, hit the like button. That helps our analytics. We are Southeastern 14. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again very soon.